Who's that? Is that Megan Curry? We are live. We have Megan Curry here with the Profit Masters. We're going to be talking profit margin, business strategies. You don't want to miss it. Be back in 30 seconds. Let's go. We are live. Thanks everybody for being here for another episode of Meet My Guests. I'm Joe Moose, and we got Megan Curry here with the Profit Masters. So I'm really glad everybody's here. This is going on social media, all different platforms. So if you guys are here, and go in the comments, say what's up, say where you're from. We want to have this engaging conversation. I'm going to be interviewing Megan, but you guys could be part of the conversation too. Megan Curry, thank you so much for being here and taking some time.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm really excited to talk some money. That's why we do all this, right?
Yeah, I was introduced to you by Justin, and he was telling me some amazing things about you. And then I talked to you. I was like, oh, wow, it's more than I even imagined. So I know that your knowledge base is really expanded over the years, and you have a wealth of knowledge. Before we get started, can you just do me a favor and kind of let everybody know a little bit of your background? I know you have some home modeling experience, but how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I come from the home improvement industry, selling all kinds of different products. I'm third generation in the industry. And I think as a lot of the probably audience can relate to, once you're in door-to-door, in-home sales, one call close, that kind of thing, it's addicting, it's fun, it's high energy. So I got sucked into it through family business and can't get out of it. So through all of that, I've worked in the industry for a little over 16 years. I took brief breaks. I went to college, became an accountant. The spreadsheets didn't talk back, couldn't sell anything, all that fun stuff, but it was a core competency of mine. So throughout my career, I do run for most of my time a home improvement one call close company in the interior space, but I've worked with exterior products, roofing, windows, siding, gutters, solar, all that kind of fun stuff. I also have a business called the Profit Masters. So that business started a couple years ago. And with some of my accounting background, what we basically did was created a company to help other home improvement contractors across different product verticals on how to run profitable businesses, how to scale profitable businesses through their sales techniques, marketing techniques, pricing models, all that kind of fun stuff. And that business is called the Profit Masters.
Man, that is, amazing. And so how many years has it been since you started, working in a business till now you started working with Profit Masters?
Yeah. So I've been working in the business for about 16 years. And it was about 12, 13 years in that I started to get involved on a circuit with one of my business partners, Brian Cascavalsian, who will be at SolarCon actually with me and our staff. Yeah. So we started kind of working a circuit where we would just do little profit workshops at different industry events, just kind of speak on this like little hidden secret. Everybody wants to talk about sales and marketing. It's way more fun to talk about.
Everybody does. Yes.
Stuff, right? But what's even sexier than that is making good money. So what we tried to do is marry all of that stuff together and make talking about the money and the profitability more fun. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we started to just kind of tinker with it. And what we found is that, and we all know this, really good coaching, really good consultants, they tell us what to do. But sometimes when we go back home and we have a great session at an event or privately, and then we sit down with our notes, we just become so overwhelmed as business owners on like, okay, but how do I do it now? And so that's where a couple years ago we created the Profit Masters, which is more of like a do-it-for-me service. It really holds business owners' hands on how to figure out your multipliers, what should your labor percentages be, your gross profit targets, how to figure out your budgets and your break-evens, how to utilize that, your marketing strategy for profitability, sales strategy for profitability, working on profit culture, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I obviously know the solar industry is a little bit of a different beast, and I'm sure you have the experience in home remodeling and home services. How has solar been, and what do you see the kind of the differences so far?
Yeah, so solar, first of all, it's one of my favorite, like what I would call product verticals within the in-home sales space residentially, because it's tough. Sometimes like when I look at products such as roofing, for example, kind of people might say that solar and roofing are close. They're not at all. Roofers have it easy, quite frankly, in my opinion, because they got leaky roofs. They got people calling in. There was a bad storm, shingles falling off. Same thing with siding. Solar is what I believe to be more of what I would refer to as a make market and less of a take market. And what I mean by that is in solar and in roofing, the leads are there sometimes for the taking. It's just who's going to call that lead first, who's going to get out to that house, who's going to sell it first. With solar, you've got to make those prospects. There's a lot of door knocking. There's a lot of retail partnerships and canvassing stores and print pieces, mailers, and all that kind of stuff just to get into the house. And then to sell that want, that need, create that sense of urgency, streamline that whole process for the consumer on a kind of a complicated product offering as well. There's a lot of differences, but fundamentally, it's just the biggest difference is that there's really no order taking. You just got to be a heck of a closer.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. I guess, we got in the solar industry thinking the opposite, that it's easy because it just makes so much sense. Like you're spending money to save money. But when it comes down to it, it's not as easy to explain, especially if you're going against unethical, salespeople
Yeah.
just saying whatever they want to say, right?
Well, what I love about that too is that's exactly what you said, is that should be the belief system and the mindset and the culture of every solar company, is that this is a no-brainer. This is easy. And it's just transferring that knowledge to that customer, that's it.
So let's get into it. I want to pick your mind. I want to start getting you get some audience, some knowledge, obviously. So you guys who are watching, say what's up. Get in there. If you have any questions for Megan, go ahead. I'll see if it's good enough to ask her. No, I'm just joking. Get in there. We'll get those questions on the board too. But Megan, first one, I wanted to, obviously you worked in both home improvement and solar. So what are you seeing as the biggest profitability mistakes you see entrepreneurs making in these industries, and if it's similar or how different they've been?
Yeah. So, I could talk about this topic forever, but I'll give you just a couple, maybe 3 or 4. One of the top biggest profitability mistakes that I see is that companies don't start with a really good pricing model. And again, there's no how-to book sometimes on how to figure out your pricing. You just kind of figure it out, but it's working the math backwards. But having an aggressive pricing model with a good, strong gross profit, it insulates the rest of your company from any kind of outside or internal factors. So pricing models tend to be a struggle point. Most people get into solar industry, right, because they were selling for somebody else and they want to open their own business sometimes. So that's where I see a lot of business owners, they come up from sales or they come up from marketing in another organization and they decide to do it themselves. The reality is if we were good at math, we would have done accounting. We would have been a CPA.
That's so true. That's such a good point. They think they know everything because they have that one good skill set. That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So when we start these kinds of businesses, just having a good, strong pricing model is probably the biggest thing. The second is marketing spend, and it's not spending too much money necessarily. It's just not accounting for every dollar. We're sales companies, right? We're solar companies, but we're sales companies. And so making sure as a marketing and a sales company that just so happens to be in the solar space, making sure all of that expenditure is accounted for and we're tracking return on investments is another profitability mistake that I see. There's a lot of money that's kind of going in and out. We feel like we had a really great sales month. We're doing really great. But then we look at our P&L at the end of the month and we're like, we took a loss. Why? So taking a look at all those marketing And then I'll talk about it a little bit later, but also profitability mistakes my top of my list is going to usually be people. Sometimes we have a tendency to hold on to the wrong people for too long, or maybe put somebody on maybe a bad bonus plan, things like that. And they're kind of silent profit drainers for us.
Well, let's talk about that, because that actually brings me up to my next question. What is that? Like, what is that when they are struggling with profitability? What's that first number, like metric that you look at to diagnose, like what is going on? What do you usually see?
So what I typically look at, and again, this is just with the mindset and mentality that we're marketing and sales companies first and foremost, is I'm going to look at like an NSLI, a net sale per lead issued, and also my cost per issued lead. So I am looking at every time my sales rep goes out on a lead, how much money are they bringing back? You know, a lot of times it's zero, right? They went out, they missed an appointment, or they are coming back with a $65,000 solar contract. So I have that metric. That's my sales per how many leads I issued. And then I'm also looking at my cost per issued lead on my marketing side. And this is kind of like an advanced technique. So I don't want to say advanced technique. It's really simple. I'm trying to explain it simple, but I could talk about this for a long time too. When you take your cost per issued lead, so you're boiling it down to every single lead, every single door that you knock on and somebody answers it, what's my cost on that individual appointment, and what's my return on investment on that individual appointment? And the combination of those two, or when you take one into the other, that gives us our marketing percent. And what I find specifically in the solar industry is that a lot of us, we make or break our profitability on our marketing costs. That's where we can make up some bottom line percentage points and dollars pretty quick. So those two I look at. They're also easy to look at with our CRM systems a lot of times. And they also tell us how good our lead sources are, maybe our canvassing crews, maybe our call centers or schedulers. They also tell us how good our sales reps are. I know that I need my sales reps to have a certain NSLI. That's where I'm making money. And if they're below that, that's where they're costing me money.
Yeah, no, marketing is probably the number one thing, companies have to look at to make sure they're profitable, because if you don't look at your number and your leads cost more than the profit you're making, then what are you doing? You're going backwards, right?
Exactly.
But like, besides marketing, what, is there like operational inefficiencies that quietly eats away at profit costs, so that, people don't want to think about?
Yeah, there's a ton. So operationally, again, it has to, for me, it boils down to the wrong people sometimes, and wrong people, wrong seats, wrong bus, whatever it is.
People in the wrong position? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it could be somebody that's good for your company, good for your culture, understands the product, understands what you do, but they're in the wrong place. And the ways I track that genuinely is everybody across the board in my businesses are always on some kind of bonus plan. And those bonus plans are tied to their KPIs, their key performance indicators. My production managers, they have to install a certain amount of revenue every single week, every single day, every single month. And if they're falling below that, as long as they have the revenue, right? Sales has to make sure that production can install it. But as long as they have that, if they're not hitting target, there's a reason why. And those little inefficiencies we review on a weekly and a monthly basis, but also my staff's pay plans are tied to that. So it's driving the right behavior. I always say that one of the best ways to drive the right behaviors is usually through hitting somebody in the pocket, right? If you give them the opportunity to make more money and their goals in that performance plan are aligned with yours, you want to install more business this month, or you want to sell more business this month, or cut back on your marketing costs by being more efficient, not necessarily spending less, your leaders and your management should have pay plans that are tied to that. And that limits those inefficiencies, because we bleed cash everywhere in these types of companies, right? We bleed cash every time we don't call a lead fast enough, every time a sales rep is too late to a house and the customer leaves because they had another appointment scheduled. Those are just those little inefficiencies that erode away at our profit margins that we don't necessarily think about every day because they're part of the business, but they do add up.
But even in, when you're smaller, you're just have you or maybe a couple people,
Yeah.
it's like it's much easier to be efficient, right? And make sure
Yeah.
you're making a good amount of money and making sure the profits are good. And like, all right, I got a couple $1,000s just saved
Yeah.
away, right? But as you scale, as you get bigger, I've noticed it gets harder and harder, and your margins get thinner and thinner, or it should get bigger and bigger, right? Can you talk a little bit about like when you scale, like what's kind of the best discipline?
Yeah. So scaling smartly. So I'll say this real quick before I dive into it. I think there's a misnomer that there's a question that people ask sometimes instead of this one, which is the right question, Joe, which is the wrong question would be, how long should I expect to take a loss when I am growing or opening in this new market?
I didn't think about taking losses. I'm not one to take losses.
Amen to that, brother. So I don't believe in that. You don't have to take a loss when you go into a new market or add a new product offering to your current verticals. The best way to be disciplined and grow your top line and bottom line without compromising your bottom line revenue or profits is to have a plan. And as entrepreneurs, that can be tough because we're gamblers. So it's tough on two aspects. Sometimes when we're little, we just don't trust anybody else. We trust ourselves. It's hard for us to let go of that control. But in order to grow and to have a business that works for us instead of us working for the business, right? We have to bring on additional staff and additional tech and all of that. So having a plan, even if it only, I don't know, gets followed 60, 70% of the way because we throw certain things out along the way. Having that plan in place is so hugely just important to a financial discipline. When I go into specifically, I'm pretty strict with my product offering. As I mentioned, a lot of the solar companies are, you have what you sell. This is it. There's some different types of, not even some, there's a whole host of different types of products within solar, but you stick with your verticals, you're disciplined with that. When I go into a new market, for example, with my product, I know exactly how much revenue I need to be doing to be able to break even with certain management in that area. I'm figuring all of that out. I'm figuring out at what point of revenue am I now getting not a logistics warehouse, but getting a brick and mortar office and leasing that warehouse. What point in time am I getting operations managers and production guys and all of that. So I'm building all of that out. I'm also a big advocate of, and this is sometimes very relatable for a lot of business owners, is like the Vikings used to do, right? When they would go to a new territory to conquer it, they just burn their ships at the shore. There's no option for
failure. No option. They're in. There's no turning back. Yeah.
So I do like the idea of, investing into a market with personnel as well as brick and mortar sometimes, but you have to be disciplined about understanding what your break evens are in your company. And it's just a quick calculation. You know what your costs are in that area in terms of hard costs with salaries and benefits and brick and mortar. Your cost of goods sold, your labor, material, all of that, that's only if you sell stuff, which you have to do, right? But you can figure out your break evens above and beyond that. And then you just diligently hit it. And it is just being so unwavering in your discipline to sell, market, sell, and just continue to grow and not make excuses for it.
Everybody, if you're watching, we got Miss Megan Curry with the Profit Masters, who's going to be at SolarCon. So you get to meet her in person in Vegas on April 15th, 16th, and 17th. And I am picking her mind and dropping knowledge for you guys in the audience. So if you're watching, say what's up, get in there. If you have any questions, jump in. And Megan, I know, you were mentioning different ways of, different ways of, being more efficient, marketing, labor, and operations. What percentage of that, is there like a specific number of like this percentage to go towards this? Or like, obviously it has to change depending on what lead source and everything else, but like, how do you kind of tackle that?
That's a great question. And I don't think enough people start their businesses with this in mind. So when an entrepreneur in any business goes in, but specifically in solar, my first question when they're like, how do I do all of this? What should I budget this for and budget that for? My first question is, how much money do you want to make? Okay. Let's start there. And then we'll work the math backwards. It's all math. And it's very reasonable in this industry to make somewhere between a 15 to 20% net profit. It sounds maybe aggressive to some people, maybe it sounds not aggressive enough to others, but 15 to 20% is something that I always have seen as being really achievable in the solar space and the rest of home improvements. So working that math backwards, if we say, hey, 15 to 20% at the bottom line, let's figure out the rest. I always start with our cost of goods sold. And with what the kind of work that we do, Joe, there's always labor, material, and usually commission, right? That goes into a job. We have to spend that money to get a job. And normally I see, and again, this fluctuates, and this is exactly your gross margins, your cost of goods sold, I again call it LMC, labor, material, commission. This is what's going to drive your pricing. So the lower you want that percent on your P&L, the higher your pricing is going to be. I'm a big advocate of aggressive pricing because I'm a big advocate of having unique selling propositions. Again, going out there and believing in your product, knowing that you have the best, it's a no-brainer for this customer, white glove service, all of that. So I'm a big believer in pretty aggressive, low cost of goods sold and high gross profit margins. But let's say on average, I see somewhere between 40 to 55% labor, material, and commission costs combined. Okay. And that's usually going to put somebody around like what I would call like a 2.5 multiplier, meaning that they take all of that and they multiply it by 2.5, and that's what their retail or target price is. That leaves us somewhere between 60 to 45% to play with. And when I say play with, it's not really to play with. It's what runs the rest of the business. So it gives us another 60 to 45%. Now, I always say for marketing, and this is again where we make or break, try to target a sub 15% marketing costs. And through whatever it is, lead aggregators, online, social media, home shows and events, canvassing, retail partnerships, having that call center or scheduling department call those leads and get our sales reps in the house. That's where I want like a max of 15%. And again, like you said, you might have lead source, like a television. If you're running television advertising, you're going to have a higher lead cost.
Yeah.
But you're also going to get into more of those homes when they call you. And you're also going to have a much higher percentage, or you should have a higher expectation of closing more of those, right? As opposed to just knocking doors, getting in 1 minute buys the next, right? Those lead sources are less expensive, but they also have a lower return on investment sometimes. So 15%, if we take that off of that previous gross margin, we're somewhere around 40%, or I'm sorry, 40%. And that leaves us another to hit the 15% gross profit, 15 to 20, it leaves us about 20 to 25% for our overheads. And the overheads are going to include your sales management, maybe your production management, mismeasures, remakes, customer issues. You're giving a gift card because the installer
in there.
Yeah, all that stuff. As business owners, we got to account for it, right? Our administrative fees in terms of keeping the lights on, the toilet paper that goes in the office, all those little things that our employees don't always think about, right? But they are super important to running the business. So we have about 20 to 25% of a budget for that. Those are dollars. That's where as you grow, those things don't double with the double size of your business, right? But they still are important. And then work the math backwards to get to that 15 to 20% net profit. So I know I threw a lot of numbers. It's easier if
it's so funny though, because like the way you talk about it, like people don't expect the bills that pile up when you become a business owner. It's like that high school kid who lives with their parents. Like, I can't wait to move my own, and they move on their own. They're like, whoa, did not realize all the bills that it takes, right?
Yeah, it's insane. Or like when you get your first paycheck and there's tons of taxes taken out, so it's all the hidden fees, right, that sneak up on us.
Speaking of like the way solar companies profit, there's something called red lines that the industry utilizes. I'm not sure how much other home improvement industries utilize red lines, but what do you think about it? This is kind of off the cuff question, so if you don't want to answer, it's fine. But like red lines compared to just percentage, commissions, working with reps, do you feel like there's one that's better than the other, or what?
Oh, sorry, you cut out at the end there. Which one? Red lines versus what?
Versus just straight profit, commissions, straight percentage commissions.
So It's a good question. I'm a big fan of straight percentage commission because it lends itself to your sales reps are true business partners then. It's harder to recruit. It's sometimes harder to retain. It's a grind. But from a business owner standpoint, I like that better. It's just the real answer. And I know this sounds like it's kind of a BS answer, but the best way is the one that you can manage as a business owner or a business leader. Personally, I love high performance, crazy 100% commission sales reps that are just out there grinding away. It's high maintenance. They're nuts. But they're profitable is the bottom line. And that's my belief system. However, if you're going to do different types of structure, it just has to be wired in a way that it's also intelligent for your business. And there are ways to do both with both different programs.
Yeah. And, speaking of managing reps are usually the ones that become the entrepreneurs and become, the business owners, and they're stuck on sales because that's their background. Like, no, sales heals all wounds, right?
Yeah, it's so funny. So I always say, we always say like, oh, if you have a problem, just go sell more, right? Sell your way out of it. I always say raise your prices. You could sell the same amount, just raise your prices. And because if you keep selling bad business on I shouldn't say bad business, but selling on bad margins, you're never going to sell your way out. You're just selling your way into more problems.
100%. So, but how do you convince them? Do you just tell them that, or is this like a kind of a train?
How do you convince sales reps why you should raise your prices? Well, that one I don't have an answer for. But there's so much technology out there that you can do incremental little price increases. But there's also ways you can justify that. I'm big on unique selling propositions. So with unique selling propositions, I'm going to justify my price. I am the company that I run day in and day out. It's called Revelair Kitchens and Baths. We do kitchens and baths in the residential space. It's not uncommon that I'm the most expensive kitchen or bath company in the market that I'm in, but I'm very proud of my pricing, and it's because of my lifetime warranty or my price match guarantee or my white glove service that I'm offering, all of those little intricacies. So you can definitely raise your prices and justify them with the service to back it up. So, but anyway, with entrepreneurs and focusing on sales first and financials later, how do I convince them to prioritize their profitability from day one? Let me put it this way. Building a house with a really shoddy foundation at first, you could still create a beautiful structure. It could be very aesthetically pleasing, but it's going to get weak. The base is going to get weak. It's going to crack. It's going to fold, right? And then trying to go back and reinforce that foundation is often a lot more time consuming, a lot more expensive than if you just built it right in the first place. So again, I always encourage, especially the smaller companies, there is no better time. Sometimes I hear smaller businesses say, hey, I just want to wait till I get a little bit bigger to utilize a service like the Profit Masters. I don't know that it'll benefit me right now. There's no better time. It's so much more difficult for me and my team when the companies are already 50, 60, 70 million, right? There's a lot of intertangled webs there, right? But when they're smaller companies doing a few million a year and they want to grow, they want to get to 15 million, they want to get to 10, they want to get to 20, 25, that's the best time aside from when you first start, right? It's the best time because otherwise, once your business is built and you've got people working in different areas of the business and they have their comp plans and they might be the wrong comp plans, or your pricing structure might be different. And now you've got to readjust it and change it. And you already have sales reps that are running this way and selling this way. It's a lot harder to change. And again, I just find that you have a business that you're working for constantly, breaking your back for, instead of a business that's working for you and printing money.
And you're helping your businesses in all different kind of stages of their profit and where they're going and where they are. How is there like anything that works for like companies that are smaller or ones that are bigger, or if they've waited too long to get your services? Is there too late? Like, I'm sorry, you want to wait down the hill here. We can't help you anymore. Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is it's never too late. It's also never too soon to do it. what I find is that every business is unique, right? We're all so unique. We all have our individual cultures, but we also have a ton of similarities. And what we do at the Profit Masters is we try to provide not just the financial expertise behind the scenes, but we also try to provide that industry soft skills approach to it as well. The difference between us and like a CPA or a bookkeeping firm or an accounting firm is that if you went to your CPA and you said, hey, Joe, can you help me figure out if my pricing model is correct? The CPA is going to look at you, or the accountant, and just be like, I don't know anything about solar. I don't know if I think it looks fine. It looks pretty standard, right? But what we can say is, hey, here's our experience. Here's our industry standard from working with other companies in the business. Here's where their gross profits are targeted. You're a little below average. You've got room to grow with all of that. And we can take a look at all that. But the other thing is we just figure out where the problems are. And most of the time, the problems, I would tell you, lie within marketing. As marketing companies, how we're being efficient with that marketing spend. And that's what gets fun is I've dealt with companies who have shut down their canvassing departments, Joe, because they're like, that department's just, I'm bleeding money. I'm not making any money. We're not selling anything. They close it down, and next month they have their worst sales month ever because they just blindly close down a department, not looking at their financials, not looking at the actual return on investment, probably because they just had some high maintenance canvassers on staff, right? So what we do is when the owner feels like, hey, I just have a feeling that this department's not performing or this source isn't performing, well, let's look at it. We have all the data, and we can make strategic and informed decisions. We take the uncertainty out of it.
I mean, a lot of companies really, believe in culture, right?
Mhm.
Like, and of course they should. Like culture, you want to have people want to work to where they're working. They might make good money. They love the people they work with. They have a good environment, but they also want to spend money to do that, right? Like, it costs money. If you want to go on a retreat, if you want to give them, swag, you want to give them all this stuff that costs money. Like, how do you kind of like get that line of like, build culture, spend money on it, but like, whoa, you're spending too much now,
Yeah, that's a good question because it's like some of those soft costs we don't look at sometime with it. But I talk about profit culture a lot, which doesn't just mean, hey, everybody's got to be an accountant. My staff, they're not accountants. They're good salespeople. They're good production guys. They're great callers and schedulers. People development. So I always say that we in this industry, we're sales and marketing companies. But the other thing that I call us a lot is we're talent organizations. There's a lot of AI out there. There's a lot of really cool tech stack that we can do within solar and within the home improvement industry, but we'll never be able to replace the sales approach necessarily, I don't think, without good people. So company culture, investing in our personnel, investing in their education, things like doing sales retreats. One of the things that I budget for every single year, and it's part of, we incentivize it, right? Because there's a way to answer the question on the screen to not make it impact profitability. I do a pros club bonus for my salespeople. And this isn't uncommon. I know solar companies, I work with solar companies that do this, where after the pros club is hit, they have every rep in that pros club or $1 million club, $2 million club, whatever it is, they are eligible for a sales trip. And the difference I would tell you between me and sometimes some other companies is that I do that sales trip for the spouses or the significant others of my sales reps more than I do it for the sales reps. It's for my sales team, right? They had to qualify
Good
it.
point. I like
but
that.
We are nothing in this industry. It's a grind what we do. Okay. It is stressful. It is crazy. And we are nothing without the support systems that we have at home. So as business leaders and owners, we cannot for a second take for granted the wives and the husbands and the boyfriends and girlfriends and just the support system that our install managers have at home, that our marketing department has at home, but in particular, our sales reps who are sometimes out in a home until 2 a.m. writing up a contract.
Yeah, the spouses want to know, like, why am I sacrificing here? What are we sacrificing for? Who are you working with? And sometimes it's like that. They just want to know who the people are, because once they actually meet each other, then it's like, oh, Sarah's, or oh, Brian. Like now it's like you're part of it, right? As opposed to like being separated from it.
Yeah. And that's my goal. My goal is through every company retreat, every holiday party that we do, I want the spouses to say, man, I wish my company did that.
Yeah.
you know? And there's
Recruit
just
the spouses.
yeah.
Why not? Right?
Yeah,
Have them tag team.
yeah. So yeah, and there's just ways to do that, to budget for it. But again, you can't, like, if you ever think that you can't afford to do some of that stuff, I would argue that you can't afford not to. So it's just a little bit of a different take on it, because without the people in your business and making sure that they're happy and invested into you, they're not going out and making sales, you know?
Yeah, and you did mention it just in the previous answer about technology. Like it's in our face. It's has to be utilized. There's no question about if it should be utilized. AI and automations and CRMs and just the whole tech stack. What is your kind of idea on it? Is it taking away from jobs? Is it making it easier for us to do our jobs? And how is it helping with our profit? Is that's the bottom line at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm like a classic millennial, so I love some good tech. But that being said, I always say that the race car is only as good as the driver in the seat, you know? So a lot of the tech out there that I'm finding throughout the different home improvement verticals that we have, is that they're good additions, but they don't necessarily always replace people. There's there's different CRM systems that are very common in our industry. I always say, with a good CRM system, you want one that's going to streamline your operations in ways that CRM system is focused on the marketing, it's focused on the sales, and then it's focused on contract fulfillment. And there are CRM systems out there that do all three. And if you find yourself piecing it all together, go find one that does it all for you. It exists, okay? And when you're spending on one solution with that instead of three different solutions, typically that's going to impact our profitability. But having the correct technology that's going to provide reporting metrics, that's the other thing, is that I find that not enough business owners actually know their numbers. If I said, hey, what were your net sales last month? I have several owners that I talk to on a week-to-week basis, and they'll still say to me, and they usually only say it a couple times before I tell them, like, you got to know this stuff. If they say, oh, I'm not sure, I have to check it, I know exactly what I sold this week, last night, and last month, okay? Because that's my cash flow coming up, right? That's what's going to fuel the rest of my business. Some of the must-have tools that I use, again, a good CRM system, and I do use certain AI through my scheduling department that helps them with their scripting, rebuttals, all of that, making sure we're on point. And then also some AI in the home that's doing virtual ride-alongs essentially with my sales reps. That, when my sales managers can't get into a physical appointment because they're doing crazy stuff behind the scenes, that AI is there. I have centralized sales managers. So that's the thing. The AI doesn't replace my sales managers. I have centralized sales managers listening to those virtual appointments or virtual ride-alongs, assessing them and coaching. And those are my must-have tools so that I can hold every lead accountable and make sure that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
I love that. I think utilizing AI is so easy right now, first of all, but it helps so immensely. How about like with homeowners or client or customers, right?
Mhm.
Are you utilizing AI to cross sell? Like you're in the perfect business to, cross sell all kinds of stuff. Like if they just did their kitchen with you or their solar system with you, like they'll pretty much sign up anything else if it makes sense for them. So
Yeah.
have you utilized AI for like cross selling and communication with homeowners?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we use it more to like cross fertilize behind the scenes. Sometimes our reps aren't great. I love our sales reps, right? But they're one track
Sometimes
mind.
they're not great. That's 100% true.
So they're not great at certain things, like saying, "Hey, Megan, by the way, I just sold a kitchen," but they're definitely good to have a bath sold to them too. Like have somebody call them back. So we do utilize the AI because we're listening to appointments. The AI is listening. We're listening for certain key phrases when we're scheduling appointments. And the AI is great. It just flags all that stuff, sends it to us, to certain people, and they know to call and get another appointment booked, or even to, when calls come in. And again, I think that's a huge area for the home, for the solar industry, and specifically, especially like with batteries, in terms of getting back out and selling batteries when lifespan is coming up on certain timelines and everything. you can probably utilize AI to listen to go through your calling list and listen to callers and what they're saying about those types of things, and make sure that nothing slips through the cracks, because it does.
It's like AI can analyze calls. I keep people ethical. They'll go over exactly the calls. Keep people homeowners from lying. They promised me a whole, kitchen. I was only cabinets. It was on the phone call. Like
That's never
so
happened
many things.
before, right?
Yeah, I'm sure homeowners never asked for more than they asked for. So no, I appreciate that. Now we're obviously in 2025,
Yeah.
and things are kind of changing in the solar industry. I don't know if you noticed, kind of a drastic solar coaster. Let's call that. We're dipping and going higher. What do
Yeah.
you see? I know obviously you have a background in different home modeling. But like for solar industry, what do you see in the next kind of 3 to 5 years? What solar entrepreneurs should expect, and how can they prepare for what you expect?
Yeah. I think there's definitely some market saturation it's maybe 10, 15 years ago, the market landscape looked a lot different. So maybe a little bit of saturation. I'm again a big believer that you can combat that with just having really diversified product and also a really diversified marketing strategy. So I don't love that like excuse when people are like, oh, the market's just too saturated. It is a reality. The window marketplace, for crying out loud, has been saturated forever, but there are still companies that absolutely crush it out there because they choose to insulate themselves with their unique selling proposition. So I do think in the solar industry, the next 3 to 5 years, you'll see a little bit of that saturation, but definitely can utilize some different strategies to combat against that. And then probably some, if I had to guess, maybe some decrease in government incentives. But again, I think there's some really creative ways to come around that. I think, again, diversifying product offerings, the marketing strategies, making sure that you are in a make market, believe that. Even though you have a no-brainer product to be sold, a lot of the United States of America is still living in the past. Okay. We're still the biggest consumer market right now. I'm going to pick on them a little bit, not too much, but the baby boomers, right? And they might not be as progressive in their thinking with something like solar, but that doesn't mean that we can't get in front of them and pitch them and sell them. It's just being creative with how to get there with all of that. And I think utilizing different technology, like we talked about, to optimize operational efficiencies. And the biggest thing that I have is just being adaptable, knowing that change is going to come. Be the first, stay ahead of that, stay ahead of the different decrease in incentives or the different litigation and laws that might change. And
domestic, like getting made in America stuff is probably going to be bigger.
Yeah, it could be huge, especially again with the baby boomer generation being one of the biggest markets right now to sell to. So just being unique, being forward thinking. I always make a joke in my companies. I'm not the most creative person, but there's a lot of AI and a lot of technology. If all I have to do is be more resourceful than the next person, and that can go a long way with insulating any kind of that solar coaster for some of these companies in the next 3 to 5 years.
I love that. Everybody watching now or in the future, this is Megan Curry with the Profit Masters, and her and Brian. Can you tell us a little bit about Brian? I know we didn't get to talk about him, but can you kind of talk about his background too? And he'll be at Solarpreneur also.
Absolutely. Brian has been in the home improvement industry for, I want to say, a little over like 20 years. He's had his own home improvement companies. Brian has a company called The Wealthy Contractor. Super, super cool organization, does podcasts. Please check him out. Pretty progressive, pretty fun to talk about all kinds of stuff, but selling, marketing, different kinds of strategy, profitability. And so we've known each other for several years. He's a fantastic speaker. I'm excited to just be able to be with him in Vegas in a couple weeks at SolarCon and meet people, talk to him. But he also has a tremendous amount of background on the profitability side with us at the Profit Masters. And so yeah, he's a fantastic partner. He's got a lot of years of experience, and he has a huge network too. That's the greatest thing about Brian, is that if he doesn't know the answer to the question, he knows 30 people that do have an answer for your question.
And Megan and Brian will be at SolarCon, or we're going to be having them at the Future Forum for sure. So we're going to have a networking circle in the middle of the expo floor where we're going to be talking about different topics, and operations efficiency is definitely going to be one of them. And keeping up profitability is probably one of the most important things for any business today. So we're going to be talking about that at SolarCon. When people go to SolarCon, what should they expect to, when they see you and Brian? And how can they reach out to you guys? How can they get in touch with you if they wanted to start working with you guys?
Yeah, so we'll be there with the Profit Masters sponsoring SolarCon. What you can expect, what we do, just to do like a slight little plug on what we do. We are a financial coaching firm, but what we do is we do all of the bookkeeping and transactional accounting services for the business. So a client of Profit Master signs up with us. We do all of their transactional accounting and bookkeeping. We get you, specifically with solar, super important, we get you onto accrual accounting instead of cash accounting, which gives you clear optics on your gross profit, your pricing model to check that, your commissions that you're paying out, gives you clear optics on your marketing expenditures, what's working, what's not working, what to fix, what to throw out, what to double down in, and then helps define budgets. Where are we hitting on those budgets? All of that. And the cool stuff about it is the things that business owners that we sometimes just don't know how to do. How do I know when I can afford a new sales manager? How do I know when I can afford a new marketing program? We're able to provide that kind of support and answer those questions with you, and teach you how to answer those questions on your own. So it makes that leadership is lonely at the top. It makes it a little less lonely. So you can go to theprofitmasters.com. We do free discovery calls. Make sure that, if there's some questions or comments, or you want to explore a little bit further on that type of service. And we have fractional CFOs and business coaches that with industry experience like myself that meet with the business owners once a month to go over the financials and answer any questions or provide some more insights to things. So at theprofitmasters.com, like Joe tagged in the bottom there, we'd love to just have a quick chat, but we'll be there at SolarCon to educate people further on their services, and answer any questions that people might have in terms of scaling their business, growing their business, and doing so in a profitable way.
Right there, everybody. Go to theprofitmasters.com. Make sure they know you saw Megan on Meet My Guest with Joe Moose, and she will be, and Brian will be at SolarCon in a few weeks. Excited, guys. If you don't know, we got free tickets, free general admission, first time ever in SolarCon. We got Tony Robbins. We got 5 events in one. If you guys don't know, go to attendsolarcon.com, get your tickets, go see the Profit Masters, go see Megan Curry, go see Tony Robbins, go see the whole solar industry, baby. So Megan, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate you. You dropped so much knowledge. And this is going to be watched over and over again going to the future. I promise you that. So thank you so much for taking your time and being with us.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody.